is what has been coming to mind for me for the last few months, because as some of you know, at the end of June, I was in a collision. And that experience has informed the last 3 months. And so when it first happened, I kind of thought, oh, fine, I'm just worried about the truck, just want to make sure that, like whatever. And then over the course of the week, the pain, the whiplash, the concussion, all the things kind of happened. And even then, I'm like, oh, it won't take that long, couple of weeks, whatever. And here we are 3 months later, and it's my really first time back here in 3 months. And so in the last 3 months alone, there has been a lot of time for me to be with things that are happening, especially in my brain, that I feel like I just can't help. And a lot of it has been this incredible surge of emotion, of mental anguish is the word that is the most perfect word for what I was experiencing again and again and again. Anguish coming out of every single cell in my body, seeping through every single pore, and really, really focusing here on what I feel is like my third eye. And so going through all of this and experiencing it again and again and again, day after day, sometimes several times per day, was a really exhausting way to be. And for someone who has spent so many years in consciousness studies and working so diligently and committedly to showing up as the love that I truly am, to really being more intentional about the choices that I'm making, to be more mindful from one now moment to the next now moment, so that I can actually experience the most engaging, fantastical life that I can experience, and I can be the best version of me that I can possibly be and continue to get better and better and better. Well, it was a real challenge these last 3 months to seem to be stuck in this incredible experience of anguish, of overwhelm, of memory gaps, of feeling like I don't have control over my emotions. And the struggle for me was because it didn't align with all this amazing stuff I learned in all of my New Thought studies. Because I'm like, spiritual mind treatment or affirmative prayer, that is my number one tool to feel better, to move energy, to support myself, to support someone else. And I just couldn't access it. Meditation, couldn't access it. Any kind of mindfulness was so incredibly challenging because all I was feeling was pain and this like doom and gloom of despair. And yet there was that in me that knew that this is circumstance, that this is experience, that this is not who and what I truly am. And yet this is what I kept feeling. This is what I kept experiencing. And so I kept thinking, oh my gosh, like here to thrive in 2025, it's more like here to survive in 2025. And so it wasn't until a few weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago, that Glenn and I were in our Tuesday night group, our Noticing Ninjas group that I've talked about before. And one of the women in there was telling us about this book, this author that she discovered through a coach of hers called John E. Sarno. Anyone here familiar with his writings? Okay, so I've read one book of his so far called The Divided Mind. He was a medical doctor, he's not around anymore, a medical doctor who focused on physical rehabilitation. And so really focused on the physical body, the symptoms that someone was experiencing, and dealt with those symptoms to try and help people to get better. But what he discovered throughout working with these thousands upon thousands of patients was that it wasn't the physical stuff that required attention, that there was something inside the mind that was getting in the way. And so when I heard this thing that he was talking about, it kind of clicked for me. And I'm like, oh my God, this is me. This is what I've been experiencing. This is like the missing link for me. And so what he found was that every single physical symptom was rooted in something psychological. Every single symptom could be traced back to not just the subconscious mind, but the unconscious mind. And I know there are some therapists and counselors in the room here. I see some of you nodding your heads, so great. I'm saying the right stuff. But anyway, so there's this unconscious part of our mind that we are not aware of. Okay, there's our conscious mind that we're using right now to be aware, to communicate, to think, to receive, whatever, to experience. And then there's this unconscious part that kind of like, I sort of like to think is like really buried deep down and it's kind of vaulted shut, right? Well, here's the thing. Every single one of us has this in our mind. This is a part of our mind. And just because we're not aware of what's going on there, doesn't mean what's going on there isn't going on there. And so what I came to realize was that the three main things that John Sarno talks about that is in the unconscious mind that will get in the way of us being able to experience life using our conscious mind alone is that there are these epic emotions that live in there that will never ever mature. They're like tiny little angry toddlers that will always be throwing a temper tantrum. Rage being the number one, okay? There's also things like goodist perfectionist tendencies, and there's things like narcissistic tendencies. And they're all there, and we all have them within us, but we're just not aware that they're kind of lurking in this vaulted, thing down in the depths. And so what happens is, because these things are so epic and so all-consuming, the ego decides, without our permission, that the conscious mind can't handle what's going on in here. And so it's going to cause the brain to create distractions for us so that we don't have to concern ourselves with this. And those distractions, that dis-ease in our life, end up being things like injuries, end up being things like dis-ease, disease, illnesses, crashing a truck into a stone wall. That's what I did at the end of June. And if you don't attend to this, the brain is going to keep causing different distractions until you pay attention. And so when I heard this, I was like, oh my God, because there are anecdotes in this book that might as well be my story. There's a story about someone crashing their truck. There's stories of people injuring themselves at the gym. There's stories of people doing medicine journeys and not being able to integrate. And I'm like, were you 12 years ago when you wrote this book, like peeking in on my life kind of thing? And so it took me back to this entire year that I experienced, where at the very beginning, I went through this ceremony and I had this incredible, amazing experience in ceremony and had these super amazing insights about life is hard, which was this fundamental belief that had been sort of running the show that I wasn't even aware of. And then I had this incredible, amazing experience of being pulled apart completely and discovering that life is hard was this tiny little tender toddler that had been shoved aside because I thought with my conscious mind that there was something wrong with it, that there was something bad. And so that entire experience for me was, oh my gosh, life is hard. Come and be seen. Come out and play. Come and be loved. And in that experience, I actually got to hold life is hard, me, and tell life is hard, I love you. I love you so much. I see you. The experience was great. And then the integration was tough. And what ended up happening, because there were so many other things going on, was this bout of depression ended up happening. And all the things in my life that were going on that I was having such a hard time navigating, burying these things that I wasn't even aware of, ego trying to take care of me by distracting me with other experiences, this just kept pushing against the barrier, the door, whatever, trying to come out and be seen and be tended to. Injury after strain. There's something that John Sarno calls the system imperative, which is you can fix one symptom, but if you don't deal with this, you're going to get another one. You don't deal with this, it's going to get worse. You don't deal with this, it's going to get really, really bad until you pay attention. And so I finally got to pay attention. And reading this book and hearing about this guy and hearing about the rage that was in here, it saved me because I realized that for almost 2 years, while working here, there was this incredible amount of rage that I was holding on to because I didn't draw boundaries for myself. I didn't advocate clearly enough what I needed to feel good, to feel supported. And because I didn't advocate, how is somebody supposed to guess? How is somebody supposed to read my mind? And so I would get angry, but I would bury it. New thought is so much about focus on the positive, focus on the life affirming, in spiritual mind treatment or affirmative prayer, turn away from the condition and focus only on the truth. That is great, and that is exactly what we want to do. But sometimes life can feel hard, and it feels like it sucks. It feels like it's not the way you want it to be, like Stephanie was talking about in her share. And so if you know that there is more to life than that you are not your thoughts, you are not your feelings, you are not your beliefs, you are not your experiences, sometimes it's not enough to know that because there's all this stuff lurking here. And one of the things that I experienced a few months ago was doing a 9D breathwork journey that was a sacred rage journey. And in that journey, when it comes to the primal scream, it was so intense, it was so cathartic, I thought I was going to vomit up a lung. But after that, especially because I hosted that journey, facilitated that journey at the chiropractic clinic where I used to work later on that evening, when I was lying on the chiropractic table and getting a treatment, Dr. Christina said, in the 5 years I've known you, I have never seen your neck this aligned. What did you do? And I said, I breathed the journey that you're about to breathe. And it was because I let go of all of this rage I didn't even know was there. And so what this made me think of is there's a line in a song by Leonard Cohen that I'm sure everyone here or most people here know. There is a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in, right? And so the title of my talk today is, There's a crack in everything. And for me, when I hear this, I've heard this so many times, but for me, what I feel like, it's not about the light getting in, it's about the light coming out. Because the light is there. We are that light. We're all of it. The rage, the narcissistic tendencies, the goodist perfectionist tendencies, the light, the love, the beauty, the compassion, the harmony, the creativity, the wonder, the infinite potentiality. We are all of it. And as we become more aware, we grow. And then we cannot remain in the container that we were in when we were less aware. And so we have to crack, we have to break so that the light that we are can shine through. Right? Yeah, okay. And so this is what I have been going through and mulling over, and I'm so grateful for this book, The Divided Mind, because that was a real shift for me. Because no matter what I did with my conscious mind, no matter how many nervous system reset tools and exercises I did, I just couldn't access this sort of alignment that I was so desperately looking for, knowing it would come eventually, but the impatient patient in me wanted it yesterday. And so to know that all of this muck and yuck is within us all the time anyway, great, like what a relief. Like I don't have to try and not be that, right? It's just a part of who I am. And because I am part of a New Thought community, because we are here gathering together to celebrate the love that we truly are, even though all of that was happening, even though I literally felt like I was losing my mind for so many weeks because it just felt like my brain wasn't working, there was still that in me that knew. And when we know who and what we are, when we anchor ourselves in truth as we grow in awareness, then the resources, the people, the lessons, everything that we could ever possibly require reveals itself to us as we're ready. So, thank you. And so I want to go back to our theme for the month. I live in a kaleidoscopic field of infinite potentiality where every shift in awareness reveals more opportunities for me to embody the awesomeness, beauty, and love I truly am. Every single moment we are choosing It's up to us to choose mindfully and intentionally and to become more and more aware so that we can actually anchor ourselves in this truth. One of the pillar statements on our VTC values compass, that we live with the certainty that love is our true nature. Thank you, and so it is.